When I was leaving McKinsey, I was choosing between joining Grab or Google. And I was going to deliver a daughter in 5 months. All my friends and mentors at McKinsey, everyone was telling me, no brainer, you know where you should be going, right? At that time, there were literally three of us in Grab that year who were new moms. Grab was already Series H. It was still a big organization, but still fairly startup-y. We didn't even have maternity cover in our group insurance. That moment, essentially, when making that choice, I remember relying on the instinct that I want to learn, be in a place where I see a greater probability of being exposed to a more diverse set of situations.
That is Aditi Sharma, the co-founder of Grow Commerce. Aditi started her career as a chip designer, did her MBA, and joined McKinsey. Then she chose to join Grab. When Aditi joined Grab, not only was she expecting her first child, but Grab was in an overdrive to enter and grow across Southeast Asian markets while competing against formidable competitors such as Uber and Gojek. It was a super chaotic, high-pressure environment to drive and deliver consistently. Eventually, Grab acquired Uber's Southeast Asian businesses in 2018. Aditi took a leap of faith by not joining Google but Grab, which at the time did not even have a maternity coverage insurance. That was a bold move, especially for an expecting mother. Women often hesitate to take such steps because they feel unsure about managing their personal and professional lives. Therefore, Aditi's journey matters to all who must make bold moves and walk the uncharted path. I recently listened to an interview by Jeannie Rometty about her journey to becoming IBM's first female CEO. She is another corporate leader who exemplifies bold and strategic decision-making. She grew up in a family that struggled financially, but through her perseverance, she attended Northwestern University and earned a degree in computer science and electrical engineering. After graduation, she started her career as a systems engineer at General Motors Institute. In 1981, Jeannie joined IBM as a systems engineer. She quickly rose through the ranks and held a series of leadership positions across IBM. In 2009, she was named Senior Vice President and Group Executive for IBM's Sales, Marketing, and Strategy Division. In 2012, Jeannie was appointed the CEO of IBM, becoming the first woman to lead the company in its 100-plus years of history. Jeannie and Aditi are examples of individuals who have been able to make bold moves, build a support system, and consistently deliver under high-pressure situations. I do hope to bring more female entrepreneurs and leaders for them to share their journeys. And now we dive into a conversation with Aditi, asking her to reflect over her career and what are her key takeaways.
It's literally been quite a ride so far. A very quick overview. I actually started as an engineer with a tech company. I'm an electronics engineer by training, so I used to design chips. And while I was doing that, I think across projects, I saw myself continuously gravitating to the business side of things. I was very excited by what the commercial side of people used to do, how they used to take the chips that we designed to the market. So I went on to do my MBA while I was still in India and joined McKinsey. That was quite a journey, very memorable, one on the people front. I think some very lasting, fun, great connections and friendships built there. At the same time, I think it was a tremendous learning journey. A lot of who I am as a professional, I think I owe to my time at McKinsey. And then I joined Grab, still was doing strategy for the first year. But then a very interesting opportunity to set up Grab Ventures came up. And I moved on to do that with my boss. I looked after startup engagement and investments over there, which was, again, a very new function. So from engineering side in a tech company to advising and working with clients across a wide range of business topics. So then moving to investments. So it was, again, quite exciting, again, from a learning perspective. I think that's the time where the dream to take the entrepreneurial plunge really materialized. So yeah, it's been quite fun. So I've been at this formally for a year. Around 1.5 years back, I decided to take the entrepreneurial plunge, and this was quite the right building Grow Commerce with my co-founder, Jason.
So before we get into the entrepreneurial stride that you've taken, what are your key learnings up till now?
If I look back, I definitely feel that I thrived the most, created the most impactful work, and had the most fun doing that when I was surrounded by people who I absolutely loved working with. I learned it the hard way, but since then have definitely kept to that mantra. That's one part of making choice from a career perspective I found very, very powerful. Second, I think it also identifies with me, with who I am as a person. Keynes was a celebrated economist. He said, in the long term, we are all dead. While all the 5-year vision, 10-year plans where I want to be, they're great tools to focus energies and chart out some vision. But I do feel creating room for some or a good level of serendipity, like seeing the magic serendipity can create in your career, allowing for that to happen can really take you to opportunities you would see yourself charting normally. And if I had to think 15 years back, I would be charting the paths that I've done so far. Unlikely I would build a plan for this. I think being more open to evolving your journey with shifting goalposts is quite good in terms of building what I would think what a fulfilling career could look like. Yeah, I think those would be my two key learnings or reflections.
You went into Grab strategy, right? And that is actually a strategy team of a startup or a high growth company.
Yeah.
And technically, McKinsey consults very stable organizations most of the times. How was that transition? Was it different, or was strategy as usual for a high growth startup compared to what you were doing for McKinsey clients?
How the transition happened is a really fun story. Maybe I'll take a minute or two to talk about it. When I was leaving McKinsey, I was choosing between joining Grab or Google. And I was going to deliver a daughter in 5 months. All my friends and mentors at McKinsey, everyone was telling me, no brainer, you know where you should be going, right? And at that time, there were literally three of us in Grab at Q that year who were new moms. Back then, Grab was already Series H. It was still a big organization, but still fairly startup-y. We didn't even have maternity cover in our group insurance. That's the stage of organization we were in really early. That moment, essentially, when making that choice, I remember relying on the instinct that I want to learn. I want to be in a place where I see a greater probability of being exposed to a more diverse set of situations is where I can get the first true view on how does the CEO make their decisions, how do they operate. And my chances of seeing that at Grab, I just felt was higher, and I joined that. So I remember talking to my hiring manager, who's now a good friend and a mentor at Grab, and I was like, hey, I'm making this decision. What should I do? They were like, yeah, you have a very compelling choice to make. I think it's fair to be done. But I spent 5 years there, and it was nothing sort of in a way, or not in a way, pretty much why I'm doing what I'm doing today is because the seeds were sown at my time spent at Grab.
Let's get into what are you building and how do you manage the ambiguity?
First, about Grow Commerce, we are basically a house of brands. We started off as a house of brands. We have 6 brands in our portfolio today. We built an omni-channel distribution for consumer brands in Indonesia. And now where we are is we are growing these brands. At the same time, we are opening up a distribution platform to other consumer brands. These could be D2C brands in Indonesia that do not have, for example, the scale to set up their own offline presence and can ride on our offline distribution, which is pan Indonesia. Or it could be D2C brands that are looking to grow in new channels like live commerce, Talkshop, Shopee Live, etc. So that's where we help or enable distribution for brands. This could also be overseas brands. For example, a fashion brand from India could come to Grow Commerce and say, hey, I want to expand into Indonesia. That's something we can enable for a brand. So that's what we do. I think ambiguity, the piece on managing ambiguity, I feel that's where leaders, founders, the C team of the startup play a very important role. I think there's, especially for a startup, because the margin of error is so much lesser or in terms of losing time, you need a good mix of people. One, people who define direction, and then people who can turn that direction into execution. As leaders, what Jason and I, both of us, try to do is drive a lot of clarity for the team. And this is basically decision making in ambiguous environments, setting up some sticks in the ground, creating clarity on, hey, for the short term, this is what we will focus on. This is the hypothesis. This is what we'll try out. This is success or no success for the experiment. And this is how we iterate. So I think in startups, it becomes even more valuable as leaders to create that clarity for your team so that they can reliably execute on at least some coherent direction, and then you can guide them along the way.
What are the three things or three abilities that operation person should have?
I think iteration is very important. When you try to design something scalable, more often than not, the first method is not going to be the best method. So the ability to iterate fast, fail fast, and then build out the next version, I think that's quite important. I would say the ability to capture feedback, and this could be internal and external, voice of customer, voice of people internally, on what's working and not. Quite critical, again, to that iteration process. I'd say that's the second part. Third is patience. Keep going at it. And yeah, the three things definitely come in very handy as you're building out large operations.
What advice would you give to your younger self?
Best is yet to come. I'm pleasantly surprised, and this is not how I expected it would be, to feel hungrier in career and in life in general over time. I had expected the inverse, right? Yet feel more calm. So it's a pleasant surprise. And I think a lot of times one would expect that you lose your edge over time, you start settling. Definitely don't feel that way. And it's super exciting. It's super exciting to look at the next decade of the career, to build something meaningful, to be a good leader to the people that I work with. Very, very excited about the next phase. I started off thinking I'll retire at a certain age. Now I'm like, no, hell no.
The other day I was thinking, if you have 40 years left to live, does it really matter where you start?
Yeah, exactly.
It's amazing like how much we give importance to our past or where we are at present and don't consider the fact that we may actually have a considerable amount of life or more than half our life still left before we hang the boots and say, I don't think there's anything left. In no time, you will have another 40 years gone. And that's a long time in one's life and maybe a very short time in somebody else's.
Yeah. And another important one, take care of health. That's how you unlock the next 40.
Absolutely. One of my professors at LBS said that if you want to be a Nobel laureate, you need to write your best paper before 40 and buy a treadmill after that. Before we end, what are your top productivity tools?
Calendaring. For planning, I use something as simple as Google Keep. I love checklists, but in general, given the number of things you're involved with, I found calendaring to be a very good tool, even for planning on the personal side. Pretty much everything that I need to get done, I would typically try to put it on the calendar, even like blocks of time to just attend to put deep work or focus time on something. That's powerful. I think I took to meditation. Mindfulness is another concept or topic I'm falling increasingly in love with. I took to meditation about 6 months back, and it has really helped me bring in more mindfulness to my day-to-day. It's so much more efficient and productive when you're 100% present in a meeting or a discussion to unlock the most out of that time. And context switching, having 5 things running in your mind is just not helpful. So yeah, I found meditation to be particularly effective.
And your top books, blogs?
Arranged by David Epstein. It's one of the best non-fiction books I've ever read. There's a bit of a confirmation bias. The book talks about how the world could use more of generalist leaders, given that a lot of business problems we are trying to solve now are of a wicked nature. Clean up that book, highly recommend. Very recently, I read Shoot Up, Rifle Night. Absolutely loved it. Books, when you go page after page and you're like, oh, this is my life, you can identify with. It was quite inspiring to read. A lot of times, success as success, right? It's plastered everywhere as success, but you sometimes completely overlook what it took to build that. It's a beautiful account of how he built Nike and all the challenges building the business that he went through. A lot of that resonates in terms of the challenges that you face day to day. So yeah, again, good book.
Brilliant. Adi, this was great. Thank you very much for being on the show.
Thanks a lot, Pritish. Thanks for having me over again.
If you enjoyed this episode, share it with someone who will find it valuable. Subscribe to the show wherever you're listening to it. Give it a 5-star rating so that others can find the show as well. Until next time.